it. And the other thing was it was possible through capital receipts to raise additional funds. And if I could give you an example of that, whenever I was minister, I was encouraged to do so. I brought in a lady from London to look at how we could raise additional private finance so we could provide more social and affordable housing. What happened was that I asked for the reprofiling of the housing executive debt and the sale and leaseback of the housing executive headquarters. When I went to the then Minister for Finance, now the First Minister, it was rejected because Treasury rules wouldn't allow it to happen. So I think there needs to be quite major discussions with the Chancellor, with the Treasury, and all of those involved there.
Okay, Quentin?
And I suppose the other area is that when that happens here in Northern Ireland, you have the problem then that we will be faced with Wales and the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Executive. And that's going to be the same issue probably with corporation tax as well. They'll say what Northern Ireland gets should we not be getting as well, even though we have particular unique circumstances and we're trying to rebuild our economy coming out of a legacy of conflict, and also we have geographical location issues.
Quentin Oliver from Stratagem. Margaret, can I congratulate you and all the other Democratic politicians for the response you gave over the Omagh murder, and I think that was a very strong symbol of unity to the community here. And I understand that some of your canvassers were at risk last night in Coach, and I would think that that is clearly an attack on democracy, and would ask you to pass our best wishes to those volunteer activists. 2 questions. Firstly, assuming your party wins 18 seats in the Assembly or more, you'll get 2 executive posts. Which ones will you be picking?
This election, Quentin, is about representation and delivery for the people. Now you are putting me into...
What's your wish list?
What's my wish list? Well, oh no, that would be very interesting. Obviously, and I'm conscious that members of the press are also here in our midst. The most important thing is for what I want the SDLP and ourselves and our colleagues to do is to increase our representation in the Assembly, in the Executive, and also in Council chambers, because we mustn't forget we have another election, and in fact another one on AV as well. So that's the number one thing. This election, if you go round all the doors and you talk to all the various interest groups, it's about jobs and the economy. What can you do to improve our lives? What is a forthcoming Assembly and Executive going to do? And I believe that's the principal issue on everybody's mouths. They may express it differently, but it's about their economic welfare. It's about how they can increase their wealth, how they can provide for their families. So we have been in DSD, and I would have to say that I think we would maybe like that again. I would also like, maybe we would like a try at health, education. And in relation to education, there has been quite a bit of obsession, I suppose, over the last number of years about transfer. But there's also other issues which I've referred to in my speech about many areas, and you need to look at, suppose, at primary schools and also secondary schools. Children leaving school with low levels of literacy and numeracy, and thereby they have not been properly equipped to deal with the economic challenges out there, or being placed in a position to compete for jobs. And I think there's a duty of responsibility on all of us, whether we're politicians or members of the wider community and within the teaching fraternity, to address those particular issues. And particularly as legislators and opinion formers, we're going to have to do something about that. There is also the other related issue of economic inactivity. And I can well recall being in the Transitional Assembly back in 2006, whenever we did a report, an assessment, an evaluation into the economic challenges. And the big idea then was we have to get a reduction in corporation tax to equalise with the south of Ireland of 12.5%. But the other issue that came out of that was were the high levels of economic inactivity, particularly in isolated rural communities, but also in urban areas, and particularly in disadvantaged urban areas here in Belfast. That, to me, has not been mitigated, and it's something that challenges us so that we make ourselves attractive to foreign direct investment and we make ourselves attractive to other would-be investors at the time when wherever economic recovery is going to take place.
Let me get you off the hook of not answering
I have
about
answered
which
your
departments you want.
question,
You mentioned the AV referendum in 3 weeks. Could you tell us why you're supporting a yes to fairer votes position?
Well, I think we've been always very clear about that. We've been very clear whether we've been in the House of Commons. We believe it provides a fairer system of representation
Hi,
for Westminster elections.
Stephen Roycroft of Ardmore Advertising. I'm also the chairman of the Northern Ireland group of the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising. It's a narrow-cast question, but it raises a broader generic issue. The Central Office of Information slashed advertising budgets last year by about 50%, with no view to the consequences of not making that investment in public behaviour and public attitudes to, say, things like health and the consequences that would have back on the public purse. I'm just wondering who, if in government, takes responsibility, and I laud your respect for short, mid and long-term consequences of policy, who takes responsibility for the short-term political headline-grabbing gains by cutting budgets? Who really takes the long-term view to see what impact that has, one, on the economy and even on the other departments that cuts may impact upon?
Well, thank you. And you're specifically talking about the executive's marketing budget.
I was talking about the UK national budgets there, administered by the Central Office of Information, but that will impact in London, but that will impact certainly down into the executives' budgets. And I recognise there was some disdain shown for the Government Information Service there earlier on, and that's not entirely without merit, that disdain. I recognise that. But the impact will be that culture of slashing things like advertising without any view to the consequences of what that investment, which is proven to be, if that is removed from the equation, what impact that has. And I don't want to dog this room with a narrow cast view on it. The issue is who takes responsibility for the long-term impact for the short-term gains.
Well, it's a matter for government takes the responsibility for it, because it is a government responsibility. If cuts are made, therefore government takes the responsibility, whoever is part and forms that government at that moment in time. It's not the past, because the past is gone. And in relation to London simply hands us down. They make decisions about the wider UK budget for information and for all other levels of expenditure. They provide us with a block grant, out of which the Minister for Finance and the Executive bring forward for executive approval and eventually for Assembly approval the divisions to each department. In Northern Ireland, the responsibility for the information service lies clearly with OFM, DFM, and they have responsibility for that. And there has been a reduction, but I suppose the financial realities and the budgetary restrictions have meant that there have to be cuts. But if there are certain crucial areas, I believe, that require to be tackled in the wider community and do require the impetus of advertising, then that area needs to be looked at.
Okay, any further questions? Just gentlemen here.
Ciara O'Hare from Online Learning. We're an online software developer. I was wanting to put it to you, not just yourself, but seem to be a broad spectrum of opinion with politics, that the corporation tax is a good thing, and there seems to be an acceleration towards that. I'd be of the opinion that, I think from CBI and even from what Francis is saying, that we'd like that maybe to slow down a little bit, because also wanted to ask you what you base your information on, or has there been discussions set around it? Because if you look at the southern example, you have Dell, who's moved out and gone to Poland, and if Angela Merkel has her way, or Mr. Sarkozy, the corporation tax might rise again. We might see Google and Microsoft all leaving again. So I'm afraid of the American corporations coming in for other reasons, vested interests of not paying tax, and all using the Republic of Ireland as a tax haven, which I would think that there's overemphasis given to corporations coming, mainly American corporations from outside coming in, and to be welcome to, it's welcome to be creating jobs, but in the long term, I'd be a bit wary of such a reduction, especially Peter Roberts talking about 12%. Initially, I would have been like other people. I thought it was a great thing, but then my accountant tells us that we don't pay the full corporation tax anyway. So,
That's a nice revelation.
well, there's actually discounts for certain profits and turnover. There's small business. You don't pay the full 28%.
If you had more FDI, you'd have more
Buyers,
supplier
services, yeah.
You'd earn more money and you'd end up paying more.
The whole idea is to attract more people.
No, I welcome it, but I'm just I'm conscious if it's not a silver bullet. I think it's what Francis was saying, and I'm also thinking that there's an incentive on profit and taxing profit. I mean, I think we all should be paying taxes. I think, as I was saying there, we shouldn't shirk our responsibilities of paying our taxes, because the flip side of that would be the 13.8% increase at present for the employers' national insurance contributions, and that added to the employees is 25%, and that's quite a large amount, and that's even before you've made a profit. So that's a disincentive in itself to take on more employees when such a large chunk goes to the taxpayer. I think it needs to be just more thought put into the corporation tax in itself before we go down that road too quickly.